It always comes to this. More nice shit. Hello there guys, back into another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I showed off all the spider webs and stuff on my head. Did some black shading and etc. around the roses on my neck and the back, and the one on the back of my head as well. I didn't really go over that much last time. I did talk a little bit about the strong potential to color the roses on my head and the ones on my face as well, which I've been leaving kind of as a beacon of, okay, well, this is what happens when you put white and black on black over black. Those who've been following me for a very long time will remember that these were stars at one point, and then they were silhouette black roses. Much like these were, there was a dagger here, there was a rose here, an upside down rose here, silhouette. So these are examples of what white can do, whereas I have very little white left in my blackout. There's very little white on black left. Where there is in places like this here, where it's a highlight, or in the legs of the spider here. It's very, very rarely used, and that's probably the best use for white on black, is like high points and things like this. Whenever you get into packing it, especially on like a first pass, it's not as good. That being said, with 3 passes, two to three passes, white, like anything else, can be fairly defined. It's just, it's never going to be quite as solid as, say, the red, like we did here today, which I will get into, I promise. Since it's already very obvious that Rick and I have done more with that, that can wait. I do plan on doing the color and the roses on my head, and changing these ones finally. I feel like at 3 years now healed over black, I feel like they've proven the point. I don't need to leave those there just as an offering to people who would otherwise, they're still doubting it anyway. I'm not going to satisfy those people, and those people wouldn't be paying attention to them anyway. So not for the sake of pleasing those individuals, I will likely be coloring those in this week. Wasn't sure if I wanted to spoil that or not, but I'm sure people probably expected that I was going there anyway. The minute I start working on something, it's probably, by now, you guys can probably assume that more will be done, and heading back to the head means I have stuff I need to do on the head as well that I haven't done yet, which will mean that the leaves will be going this turquoise green is what we used, mixed with white, and the roses on my head will be matched up with the roses on my neck. The reason why I say my neck is because they're more similar to the ones on my head than my arm, but they'll have the same color scheme, and I think it'll just tie everything together. And the roses on my face are going to be a little bit different because there isn't as much space for color, so the color scheme may be a little more simplified than what we have happening on my neck and arms. The leaves are fairly large on my my face here, so we'll keep the black balance in there, much like there is in the leaves here, and then probably do the green to tie into the leaves up here. But the overall rose, the cluster is fairly dense, so there won't be as much room for color play between the light blue, red, and purple, but we'll figure out a way to make it all work. May be able to do it all in one session, but I don't know. We'll see. There's quite a bit to do in all that, so we'll see what Terry's feeling like. Maybe we'll break it up into 2 sessions. I do need to do the 3rd pass on my head anyway, so the forehead piece here. So that'll need to be done as well. But yeah, for anyone wondering, because it had been about 1.5 years since we'd done the red on my head, like, it held up about the same as we left it. So And that was a little point of pride in that I've had no access to tattoo my head for a while. It's been growing hair and etc. And so going back and doing the spider webs and the dark shading over top of that red, it was nice to see that all that red is held up fairly well. Where when you're growing hair over it, it's hard to see it all the time. I'd love to know what's going on with Vampire Bat Boy up on top of my noggin, but I'm not curious enough to shave it off. I can see that the thorns that we did they're holding in there, but at some point I'm going to need to shave off my hair, and whenever I do, we need to bring up the thorns on my head to the same gold color that we have on my arm and neck. So one day I'm sure I'll have the urge to shave my head again. It's always a calling force when you have a head tattoo to shave it, but my wife prefers me with hair, and sometimes I prefer having hair as well. So it's a whole thing. With that said, obviously Rick and I had this session. I'll get into this now. I wasn't sure how many sessions this was going to take. It goes back behind the eye there. And it actually helps frame in the eye a little bit to have the distinction between the brighter red and the darker red, because the dark red in the eye will stay that way. All of the bright red around it should carve it out a little bit. And it will carve out the sleeve, the Cthulhu sleeve, quite a bit more as well, having the brighter red there. And where all of this red is already done darker, it should stay fairly bright because we're just trying to brighten it. It's already red, and obviously there's some more texture in there. The spider web that we have over this area here will pop out more when this heals. Right now the black shading that Rick has done and the bright red are overpowering it, but that will only be the case for a little while. It will kind of go back more to the same tone that we have here. The same reds were used, and the black will look similar, so it won't be lost the way that it is, and obviously it won't stand out as much because there's more texture there. But I actually like the idea of everything being married in, and having this red will come all the way through here over to the dark shadow we have here eventually. So that should be another session or two with Rick, the way he works, to tie all of that together. And if it needs any additional work at that point, I don't think it'll be a full second pass. What I would imagine is maybe just a brush up. But I don't really consider this part of the 85 sleeve sessions we've had. This would have been session 86 had we worked on the arm today, but this is kind of apart from the arm, so I don't really consider it part of that project. So yeah, it was fun though. I really like these bright reds that we're packing in, and for me it's like I was apprehensive to go bright for a long time. My first suit was fairly bright, and it was too bright for my taste at that point. And I think part of that was, there wasn't enough dark in the balance in places. Whereas now we have quite a bit more black, obviously, and darker pieces. I think that the contrast is probably a bit richer for my taste. With that said, I also think that it's like a gradual kind of working into it and becoming comfortable with the bright color again. And it's a little more tonally consistent, and the theming is more focused and more on point than it was in the first suit. So there are some meaningful differences within that, even though it will be, at some point, it will be similarly bright. I also feel like not for the world, and it's important that I make that distinction, not for the community, because I feel like by now I should have, if I haven't proven it to you by now, I probably never will, but I have proven that you can get bright color over black and it will stay, right? We have bright color over black already. I feel like I haven't taken this thing to its natural limit. Obviously, my bodysuit has been done in a variety of forms many times over the years, and so it's not about proving this to the world so much as it is about, for my own curiosity and for my own ambitions. I feel like I can take this thing farther and I still have gas in the tank for this, believe me, I will tell you when I don't. People will call it addiction, they'll call it whatever they want, and whatever will make it make sense for them, I'm fine with those categories. You can call it anything you want. I call it a hobby I enjoy, a passion project, right? I have Terry actually. Terry's keeping his nice car in my garage, and he needs a nice place to keep it during the winter, and I've got a nice heated garage for him out there, and it's become like his little shop, and the dude is spending thousands and thousands of dollars working on his car pretty much every day. He's been doing this for a couple years now. He's always upgrading it. He's always tooling away on it, and I like to think of my body as, a prize car or something, or an old muscle car that someone's been working on. Whatever the case, there's a way to make it make sense. I have a buddy that I used to work with. When I went to his house for the first time, his whole house is full of anime stuff. It's full of posters and body pillows and fucking action figures and fucking, all kinds of shit. He's got 3 monitors. He's a part-time streamer. And it's like, none of that seemed weird to me because my rationality for it was like, oh, that's his tattoos, right? Everybody has some version of that, and this is mine. And sometimes I wonder, because I'm always talking about when this is going to be done, I feel like the only reason why I'm discussing that is because people have the expectation that it necessarily needs to have an end point. I don't really think that it does. I think that it's like, as long as I'm enjoying it and I'm not hurting anybody and I'm in good health, and I've never been in better health, and I've had no issues. I haven't even been sick in I don't even know how long. I've had the sniffles here or there, but in terms of actual sickness, I'm not in bad health. I have no issues. So for me, it's like, I think the only reason why I even have this discussion, and sometimes think I need to find a point where it's over, and sometimes my interest wanes in it, but I think it's just like, you're expected to, like people expect me to carve out an end point. And it's like, as long as we're getting results and as long as I'm still having fun, I don't really feel like that's necessarily a thing that has to happen. And I think that if I do decide to, it will be because I want to, right? Like, I want to be done. But I think I owe it to myself to see what the actual saturation point, how bright you can go with this stuff. And again, not for the world to see, because I've already done my part in that regard. And the people who will doubt me till the end of time, no matter what. They'll be saying that this is edited and whatever, none of this is real, whatever. That's not going to happen for those guys. If you're still on that team, you're going to be on that team anyway. But for me, my own morbid curiosity, and for my own fun, I want to see what the actual limit of this is, right? And I don't think I'm anywhere close. People keep asking me now, because it is very, very... It's easy to see that there's no one who's had more layers than me. This is not my opinion. This is reality. This is not my narcissism. This is nothing like that. This is just objective fact. Whenever you're doing something like this as a hobby because you enjoy it, you're going to end up in the absurdities of things, right? And so it's very obvious to anyone who's been paying even remote attention that there's no one who's ever had more layers than me. And people keep asking me, is there a limit to this? And isn't it going to come to a point where your skin can't take more ink? And it's like, no, there is no such limit. And based on what I've seen, there isn't, right? Like, no one has found it. There hasn't been someone who's found the definitive limit. If there was to be such a point, I would be the person to find it, unless I die trying, right? And like, as I said, no health issues so far. So I feel like there is no limit, because we can still do stuff like this over stuff like this. And this is already several layers over top of several layers of black over top of several layers of full color tattoos and things like this. And it's still showing through in a big way, right? We're not getting, the only time we get into diminishing returns is when we do something too many times in a row and we don't let it settle in. Like with my forehead, it didn't go as bright the second time we did it because we didn't wait that long, right? And I knew that would be the case. It is brighter than it was the first time, but only so bright, right? Whereas when we hit it again, even if we hit it again right away here, because it's been now a month and a half instead of a few weeks, it'll have a better result. And the same would be true if we waited even longer. The ink, the more it settles, the more reactive it is to new layers. So I knew that this was going to take effortlessly, and I also know that it's not going to stay quite this bright, but it is going to stay fairly bright. I have reasonable expectations of that, right? Because I've done this dance enough times to know by now. And same thing for when we color in these roses, they're going to take really, really well. They may not need a second pass because they've been settled the way they are now for a long time. I haven't tattooed any of this stuff in years, so it's going to be very reactive, and the new pigment going in is going to be a lot stronger than the pigments that are already in there. Even though these things have all been tattooed a million times, the new pigment is going to win out. It's going to be drastic and striking immediately. You can pretty well bank on it. I would bet money that that's the way it's going to be. And I have almost no doubts of any of these things anymore. I've had pretty much everything I thought would happen enough times that it's hard to doubt any of it anymore. And it's hard to really imagine that there is such a limit. You would think maybe there would be if you had no experience with this, but everything that I've done here suggests that there is no such limit, and if I want to, I can turn this brain rainbow if I want. I can make that bright yellow. Not that I'm going to, but with enough layers and enough time in between and enough patience, enough pain, enough money, enough whatever you want to say, you can just keep doing more. And as long as you're healing well and you're not having any problems, then it's really just, are you patient enough? It's got nothing to do with anything else. So I do have some other things to talk about this week. I had a funny message sent to me from a company, but I'm not going to discuss that today. I will get into that maybe in the next video, but I'll have lots to say about that here soon. So I'll show this off again, and we're going to continue this up here next week, naturally, with Rick. I've got 2 sessions coming up this week, so I'll be talking to you again here real soon. Take care.